KOCT program underwriters are not affiliated with the City of Oceanside. This program is underwritten in part by Waste Management of North County in Oceanside. We are dedicated to serving customers and community as a safe, comprehensive service provider, a good corporate citizen, and a responsible environmental steward. Think green. Think Waste Management. You are watching KOCT's North County Roundtable. On this edition, our guests include President and Superintendent of MiraCosta College, Dr. Sunita Cooke, Deputy Mayor for the City of Oceanside, Chuck Lowery, and San Diego Union Tribune columnist, Logan Jenkins.
Welcome to the all-new North County Roundtable. I'm your host, Kent Davy. On this edition of North County Roundtable, we'll speak with the President and Superintendent of MiraCosta College, Dr. Sunita Cooke. She'll give us an update on bond measure MM spending at the college and tell us about the goals for the college in 2018. Our next guest will be Chuck Lowery, Deputy Mayor for the City of Oceanside, here to share his opinions on the state of affairs in Oceanside and his thoughts about the recent council selection of the new mayor. Our final guest is Logan Jenkins, San Diego Union Tribune columnist and longtime friend, here to reflect on his long career in journalism, share his thoughts about the political landscape around North County. Our first guest is Dr. Sunita Cooke, President and Superintendent of MiraCosta College. Welcome to the show, Dr. Cooke.
Thanks for having me.
Well, a little over a year and a few months ago, voters came to the polls and passed Prop MM, $455 million building program. So 16 months later, 14 months later, I guess. Tell us where we're at.
Well, we've done a lot of work behind the scenes really to lay the groundwork for the design in the building. And so there are things that aren't very visible. We had to first go out and get a bond rating, and so we were able to get the highest bond rating from both Standard & Poor's and Moody's. So that's a AAA rating, which keeps the cost of repayment down very low. Then we sold the bonds, and those were also very oversubscribed so that we could again reduce the interest rate in payment, and that again keeps the cost low for repayment. So we've also hired program managers, and we've done the environmental impact reports.
Okay, and that still has to go to the Board of Trustees yet, right?
The reports?
The IERI for approval?
Yes, right. The final stages will go to the board, and we're now out for public comment in the Oceanside EIR. The other two are completed already. Okay,
once you sell the bonds, does that money then collect in an account someplace where you in fact earn interest on the account as you pay it out for various projects?
Yes, it does stay in an account, and then we are expending that funding already. In fact, we've paid off lease revenue bonds through that. We've hired the program manager. There's some contract law that we've had to do. And so all of that is, as we spend, we will pay with MM bonds.
Okay,
yes.
Since this is a big project that involves all of MiraCosta's campuses, can you tell us what the first visible sign of what's new or what's changed is going to be?
We plan around the instructional program, so our heavy renovation and modernization will occur as early as June of 2018. So as soon as school is out, we'll start renovating at the San Alejo campus.
Okay.
We'll be in design already in 3 major new buildings that will be at the Oceanside campus. That includes a gym building, a gymnasium, allied health and nursing, biotechnology and chemistry, and then all of the 3 sites will get a new student services, student resource building for serving our students.
The renovations down in San Alejo, can you describe exactly what's going to happen? I mean, what do they get that's new?
There will be one new student services building and administration building where we'll have a one-stop shop for students to receive all of their services. The rest of the classrooms and lab will be significantly modernized so that we've got what appear to be modernized 21st century classrooms and labs, and that's really badly needed at San Alejo.
Does this reflect any ability for the college to absorb a greater enrollment at all?
There is some new building, and that's primarily in specific areas around STEM, where we saw that there would be projected and anticipated growth in the future. So nursing programs, allied health, as well as biotech, chemistry, those kinds of STEM, engineering, math programs that will be growing.
And you sense a lot of demand out from the student side for that.
Correct.
One of the problems that I assume MiraCosta is having that other institutions trying to build right now is we've got a tight construction market. There's a lot of demand, a lot of pressure on prices. Tell us what's happening on that score.
Yes, our best anticipation is that it's probably 10% more to build out our complete facilities master plan than we had anticipated. But on top of that, cost escalation has gone from a traditional 5% per year to 8% per year. So the longer you build out more expensive things, the longer it takes you to build those out, the more cost escalation it's going to take, and that's just loss of dollars. So we're building the expensive new space first so that we don't have as much wasted dollars as we wait for those things to be built.
That then implies that just the cost increases, if it's 10%, means that all of a sudden $40 million evaporates from what you're able to do with that bond issue.
Right.
If that has to come off the back end for something, have you prioritized, what gets clipped or what gets hurt?
We've done a lot of prioritization, and we're vetting that through our campus now. We actually have 4 scenarios that would be, we're only talking about scenario 1, which helps us to recoup that 10%. So we've had to prioritize and cut some things out that we'll be able to fund with later dollars, our own dollars, state dollars, and also it may be that we have to take out a lease revenue bond towards the end, maybe $20 million or so at the end, that would not need voter approval. It's something that we would take out a loan and then pay that back through our own general fund.
Okay.
So we are working on prioritization so we don't have things fall off at the back unexpectedly. We'll plan for that.
There are big things afoot at the campus with one of, a dozen or so programs or community college programs in the state that are now capable of offering a 4-year degree.
Right.
This is a big deal for us.
This is a very big deal. So we were one of 15 out of the 114 community colleges in California. We were one of 15 that was selected to do our own bachelor's degree. And so that degree really built on the biotechnology strength that we already have and the demand for bachelor's degree manufacturing workers in our medicine production field in San Diego.
So it's a biotech manufacturing. Biomanufacturing degree. Is there an equivalent kind of program anywhere in Southern California?
There is not. This is the only one in Southern California, and we have a partner in Northern California, Solano College, who's also offering the same degree. And Genentech, as you know, is here in Oceanside. They're also in Northern California, and so those are supporters. Those are big employers that will be in demand for our students, as well as other employers.
Sure. Did people like Genentech have a role in trying to how do I say this, articulate the curriculum for this kind of a program?
Yes, we always sit down with industry partners in designing workforce programs such as this, and all of our local biotech firms wrote letters of support for us to have this program at MiraCosta College. So we work very much in partnership with our industry employers.
How soon before you see the first grad of this 4-year degree?
So our graduates will graduate in not this May, but the following May of 2019.
And what's the throughput of kids, or people, I should say, people going through the program?
We have 23 students in our first class, but we have a pipeline of about 80 people that are in the first 2 years that would be eligible, among others from the community, for the next class that we're selecting right this minute. So if somebody has interest in biomanufacturing, this is the time to get on our website and look for information.
So at the present rate, then, once you get through the say the 4th year into the 5th year, you'll have about 50 seats.
We would
a
have
class?
Yes. So about, I would say about 25 to 30 juniors, 25 to 30 seniors.
Okay.
And then graduating about 30 or so at a time.
Okay.
Yep.
With that, is there a complementary job placement program that goes with it?
We do have a career center that is moving more into the direction of placing students into the workforce. So yes, and we have more demand, I think, than we'll have graduates right away. So it should be an easy matchup for us.
That's not the only four-year related program that the college offers, though. It has a partnership with Point Loma.
Right.
Tell us about that.
So we are very interested in keeping college education affordable at a high quality and in our neighborhood, in locally. And so we have partnered, certainly many of our students go to CSU San Marcos and love it. Some of our students feel more comfortable just staying on our campus, and we've worked out an agreement with Point Loma Nazarene University for a great rate, and our students never leave our campus. So they continue to take classes at the MiraCosta campus in Oceanside, and they can get a bachelor's in business administration, nursing, also child development, and the most exciting new one is cybersecurity. So they can take 2 years of cybersecurity with MiraCosta and finish in computer science with Point Loma, and they can be offensive or defensive. So they can protect a company from cyber attacks, or they can be proactively probing and trying to find the places where others may be attacking.
So very themselves.
Exactly. Hackers for good, I think it's called.
White hat hackers.
That's right.
That's right. For those kind of partnership programs, do you have any guesses as what kind of enrollment you've got sitting in that?
We've got some pretty full classes. So again, I think we just started most of those junior level classes this fall. And so I think we're close to 25 to 30 in each of those classes that have begun. And we've negotiated a great rate. So I anticipate the programs will grow, especially as capacity at CSUs and UCs continues to be very, very high.
For year 3 and year 4 classes, are the kids or Point Loma instructors coming here and delivering on-site classes, or is this principally online?
No, it's a combination.
Distance.
It's a combination. So we do have their faculty coming to us. Sometimes they use our faculty that are qualified to teach, for example, in nursing. And then there is some online components as well. But there's a very robust face-to-face part of it.
Specifically for nursing, because I know there's been a lot of conversation over the last few years about the huge demand for nursing in California generally, and I assume here specifically. What kind of throughput have you got into that program?
We have, we graduate 60 nurses a year
60?
at MiraCosta alone in the 2-year program. So those would be people that would be eligible to go on to the Point Loma, as well as the 20 years of graduates that we've had out working already. So there's a very high pool of people that would be interested in going back for a bachelor's. And what I see is our graduating classes of registered nurses from MiraCosta's 2-year program, I would say 80% of them are going right into a bachelor's program because it increases their employability, their career ladder, and it will be, very necessary.
For you probably said something and I didn't catch it. For the kids that are going through the Point Loma half of the program, are they still being afforded attractive tuition rates like MiraCosta, or is there a big jump in the price?
It is definitely more costly, but it is much cheaper than if you went 2 years solidly at Point Loma without this agreement.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Tell us what's happening at the Technology Career Institute.
We are very excited. We've gotten a $6 million federal grant. It's called an America's Promise grant. It was the only award in California and the largest of the whole nation. So 23 awards across the nation. This was the largest award. It helps us to focus on advanced manufacturing, things like machining, welding, and the maritime trades. So underwater welding, all kinds of advanced skills that would be used in the maritime field, the blue economy. And we're starting a new program this summer that's about drones and remote operated vehicles. So we'll certify folks in an FAA trained certification, and they will be able to fly the drones above air underwater, and also they'll be able to repair the drones when they need such repair.
Is that program also been designed with some industry support and articulation?
Yes.
Can you give us an idea who are the big players in that
You know, the Maritime Alliance is an organization of these industry employers, and they are the convener of those folks. So that's who we would work with to bring folks into the curriculum development and employability.
Okay, we've only got about a minute left, so I'm sure there's lots of other things going on at MiraCosta. What else do you need to let our viewers know about?
We're going to start in fall really welcoming first-time students with much more financial support than we have been able to because of the California Promise. That will combine with the MiraCosta Promise. So we have a lot more financial support for students, and we're going to bring them into these guided pathways where they choose a field of study generally, and then they explore that and they get on a directed pathway to either transfer or to work. So it should be very exciting.
Sounds very exciting. Thank you very much, Dr. Cooke.
Welcome.
We have to take a short break, but stay tuned for more conversation right here on North County Roundtable.
If back pain is keeping you from
Exciting.
doing what you love, we want you to know about the Mazor
That was
Robotics
about as fast
Renaissance
as I
System,
could go.
an innovation in spine surgery, first offered in San Diego at Tri-City Medical Center. Meet Dr. Payam Moazes. Dr. Moazes is among the most experienced surgeons using the Mazor Robotics Renaissance Guidance System. This system is 99% accurate, requires a shorter hospital stay, is safer and less invasive. Recover faster. Get back to doing what you love. Tri-City Medical Center. Advanced healthcare for you.
The Oceanside Public Library is proud to offer you best-selling and classic ebooks and digital audiobooks, available 24/7 by visiting the library's website. You can browse the collection, borrow with your library card, and enjoy on your computer, tablet, smartphone, or e-reader. Many borrowed ebooks and audiobooks can be enjoyed immediately in your web browser. Titles automatically expire at the end of the lending period. There are no late fees. With hundreds of popular titles to choose from, this collection is guaranteed to have something for everyone. You can enjoy bestsellers and classic literature, stories for kids and teens, and much more anytime, anywhere. All you need is your library card. In addition, the library offers classes to help you get started borrowing ebooks and digital audiobooks with your device. For class information or for more details about ebooks or digital audiobooks, visit our website at oceansidepubliclibrary.org or call us at 760-435-5600.
Oceanside Spectrum is a unique talk show that seeks to shine light on local nonprofit organizations in San Diego's North County. Guests from these nonprofits are interviewed by host Elaine Swan about upcoming events, volunteer opportunities, and much more. Oceanside Spectrum airs Monday through Friday on Channel 18 at 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. If your nonprofit organization would like to promote an upcoming event, attract new members, or share your good works, please call 760-722-4433 or email us at koct@koct.org.
Use motor oil or cocktail of toxins. Dispose carefully, you got lots of options. Never the trash, the drain, or the ground. That's insane and it ain't safe and sound. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city.
Recycle used oil and filters at certified collection points in Oceanside. For locations, see greenoceanside.org.
Hello, my name is Amber Tervroot, and you're watching KOCT, your community channels. I'm a friend of KOCT, you should be too.
Welcome back to North County Roundtable. I'm your host, Kent Davy. Here joining me is Deputy Mayor for the City of Oceanside, Chuck Lowery. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Good to be here. Thank you.
The big news of late is a very surprising council action to appoint Peter Weiss, former city manager, as the mayor of the City of Oceanside for the next 2.5 years. Since you were instrumental in this decision or making this decision happen, can you give us the inside story of what happened?
Sure. Well, Mayor Jim Wood retired effective January 1, and he had his stroke in May of last year. So we as a city council have been functioning with a lot of 2-2 vote potential, which means we can't really move anything forward. So at a previous council meeting, we proposed to listen to anyone who wanted to apply for the job. and
From the outside?
Yeah.
Or wherever?
Anybody.
Yeah.
And so we agreed to kind of move that forward a few weeks ago and got some very vague applications, and we received one application from Peter Weiss, who was the, as you said, former city manager. And these are just general applications, I can do the job kind of statements. And we had our council meeting 10 days ago, and that meeting was, we couldn't pick anyone from among the council members.
And it went around kind of the circle.
Yes, it was, what about Councilmember Feller? What about Councilmember Kern? What about Councilmember Sanchez? What about Deputy Mayor Lowery? And none of us got enough votes. So
And enough would have been 3.
3, yeah, so it was all, you know, either 2-2 or not enough at all. So then the council meeting continued, and we were discussing whether or not to have a special meeting and to take more applications and to interview people during the special meeting. And I was seated while this discussion is going on. We're all there during the meeting, and on both sides of me, it's like, well, let's have a meeting that starts at 1 o'clock, and then let's have a meeting that allows people to speak for 5 minutes. And I just felt that we were kicking the can down the road. We need to deal with this situation where we've had a missing 5th council member for 8 months. And if we want to do an appointment within what the applications we've already gotten, let's think about those. So as the council members continued speaking about minutes and weeks, I was thinking, could I interrupt that just for a second? I said, I want to make a motion that we appoint Peter Weiss to complete the term of mayor. And Councilmember Kern seconded it, and we voted on it, and it got 3 votes.
Was there a lot of discussion prior to the vote, between the second and the vote?
No.
So it got 3 votes. Who was the dissenting vote?
Councilmember Sanchez.
Okay. One of the things that surprised some of us on the outside who don't know the regulations, the law, is that this is an appointment for 2.5 years, and not for until June, not for until November. Why is that?
The law in the state of California, whatever level that is, requires that to complete a term for the mayor, the appointment goes till the mayor's seat would be up. And so he was just elected in 2016, so his term is up in 2020. If it were a council member, it would only go until the next election.
Right.
But we didn't have a choice to change that law.
What are your thoughts about what having Peter Weiss as mayor does for the political landscape inside the city?
I think that, do you mean the whole city?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think
we are used to a city that struggles to make decisions.
Yes.
Now all of a sudden you have somebody who has been a city manager, been a consultant for the city, has generally a reputation of being a pretty even-handed, competent, fair man.
Correct.
And I'm curious how that kind of a role then fits into Oceanside's sometimes fractious politics.
I hope that Mayor Weiss brings in the experiences I've known that I've seen him working with groups of people in the community. I've seen him working with council members during council meetings. He is very level-headed, and he has knowledge. It's not simply that he's handed a 16-sentence outline of a situation. He knows in depth what's been going on. When I asked him about anything, yesterday I had a meeting with him at length to ask him a bunch of questions I had. He had not only answers to the questions, he had experiences based on those questions, and he would say, we will not have the money for that proposal for 20 years. And that really, okay, when someone has the knowledge like that, I hear that, and I'm not going to argue with them, and I'm not going to vote with what my opinion is on something. If the reality of the circumstance is that we can't do it, then I'm not going to say, we got to do it, and go crazy on an issue.
Right. And I've read, I've not talked to Mr. Weiss, but I've read some of the news accounts that indicate that he has indicated that he has no aspirations beyond this 2.5-year term, which interestingly changes some of the political dynamics of people who might be interested after 2.5 years.
Yeah, I think we will have a full-blown election for mayor in 2020.
Right.
And it will be, I don't know who the candidates would be at that point.
Another topic that is big on the minds of people in the city of Oceanside right now is this proposal for a 1/2-cent sales tax assessment. Can you tell us where that stands, what's happening with it, and then your views on it?
Yes, the city of Oceanside hired a consulting team to give us information about what's involved to do an initiative, a proposition where the city asks the residents if they are willing to participate in a tax increase. And this consulting team did a lot of homework and discussed it with 1,400 people. It wasn't simply a, do you think yes or no on this? They asked many questions. It was like 20 minutes per person. They discussed it with this significant sampling of voters, and the result was that people are so happy with how things are going in Oceanside that they would be willing to pay a little bit more money in sales tax.
Okay, that would move sales tax from what to what then, as a percentage?
Half cent.
So that moves it to 8 1/4?
Probably. I'm not sure exactly what we're paying in
7,
Oceanside.
I'm not sure. It makes it equivalent to what's being paid in Vista, as I recall.
I don't know that number.
Okay.
But I do know that the interest was so high in it, and that the city would set up a term of 7 years, and we would net something like $9 million a year.
So this is being proposed as not a permanent sales tax
Correct.
increase, but a temporary sales
Yes.
tax increase.
And it still has to go to the public for a vote, and so the council has to decide, oh, do we want to put this to a public vote or not? So it's not simply that it happens.
If it goes to a public vote, or should it go to a public vote, it passes with what percent? 50 plus 1 or 2/3?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's a 50 plus 1.
Okay.
Because we had many responses that were at 62 and 64%, and they said this is a 50 plus 1 election. So as I think of that right now, that
Okay.
should be what it is.
There are some underlying economic issues that are driving the need for this sales tax in the view of proponents. Can you give us some insight as what's going on with the Oceanside budget that all of a sudden we need money?
Sure. People are very sensitive to where our money goes when we pay taxes, and we pay a lot of property tax here that the city doesn't get very much of. On our sales tax, the city gets 1% of whatever that number is, so this would add on to that 1% that we're collecting right now. And what we need as a city is to be able to pay for our infrastructure costs.
Okay.
And if our infrastructure costs include police and fire, that means it includes police and fire pensions. And the state pension program is killing us. And we are very stable and able to pay for our pension costs, but we are not able to pay it without having more income streams. So what's happened right now and for the next year or so is that it's stable and we're prepared to deal with it. But in 2 or 3 years, the pension costs are going to skyrocket because the state of California, the PERS program, they've told us that they can't pay it anymore through their investments.
Yeah, there has been reporting elsewhere that the earnings or returns assumptions that PERS makes are, in the minds of some people, pretty grandiose compared to what they're likely to be able to actually earn,
Right.
which means that cities like Oceanside start pedaling faster and faster and faster to make sure that the pensions stay solvent. And that an accurate kind of description of where you're at?
We as a city are very conservative with our money, and our projections go out for several years. And I met with our staff last week to discuss these issues in particular. And they're being very conservative with what monies we have to spend on infrastructure needs. The thing about the sales tax is it would just go into the general fund. It would not be designated for anything in particular. So that's where it needs to go. It needs to go to give us the flexibility to spend it wherever we need it.
Last month, Councilman Kern indicated that he felt, from his point of view, felt the city had enough money to, say, build a new swimming pool, but they didn't have enough money to operate it. So that seems to be, if that's an accurate description, it seems to be the pinch that you guys on the council are in. You've got things that you might be able to do, but no way to actually pay for running them.
Yes, we can afford to finance the construction of an aquatics center. We cannot afford to pay anywhere from $1.5 to $2.5 million a year to operate it and maintain it and staff it.
Yeah. Are there other costs that are building inside the city's budget besides this pension issue that are notable?
I think the routine maintenance issues are significant. The one item that came up for a council vote a few months ago was about pier maintenance, the pier at the beach. As we do routine maintenance on the pier, the people doing the work continue to do further investigation into, if we're just repairing the exterior of it where it's got steel on the inside, maybe we should take a look at the steel. Well, the steel is 100 years old that's in there, or the iron or whatever it is, and it is decaying completely. So if we don't spend $1 million plus on the pier maintenance, we can't keep it open.
Okay.
So then we have a whole other issue that we deal with. So this is an example of a short-term need that we have, and it will be effective for decades once the repair is done. But it comes to the council as a meeting item, and with the fifth person on the council, we can make those decisions. Before it was just 2-2. If we say 2 people want it and 2 people don't want it, then that's a no vote.
Right.
So we will hopefully be able to move forward in that.
Another issue that has beset the council, that the 2-2 kind of split or fraction votes seem to have become apparent in, was with regard to regulation of marijuana.
Yeah.
Can you tell us where we are on that topic?
Sure. So in about May of 2017, the City Council agreed to set up a medical marijuana ad hoc committee. This was a 6-month program. It was composed of 2 city staff people and 2 council members, and we had 2 members of the public on this committee. And we did a lot of research, field trips to see how the product was grown, how it was handled, how it was marketed. And we talked to dozens and dozens of residents who use it medically. So we put together a medical proposal, and we worked with the city attorney. And the idea of doing this is that people are confused sometimes that, well, it's legal in the state of California, is it legal in Oceanside? Right. It's legal in the state of California, and Oceanside is a part of that state. But the city has the ability and the responsibility to regulate where something is sold, how it is marketed, and if it's grown here, for example. So we want to do that as a result of the ad hoc committee outcome.
Okay, and very quickly, because we only have a minute left, if I understand currently, what's happened is you, the city council, have given to staff basically a set of priorities and said, make this into regulations that will come back to the city.
Yes.
And something of the same sort has happened with SOAR?
The SOAR initiative is completely resident-driven proposal, and it will ultimately come to the city either as an initiative that goes on the ballot, or it will fail.
And that is a zoning-related issue?
Zoning-related. It would change the way zoning issues are done within the city. Instead of a decision being made by the city council, decisions would be made by the general public. So that means that the people of Oceanside would have to pay $75,000 to $750,000 to run a special election to get a decision made for a zoning issue.
Right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lowery. That's all the time we have for this. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more North County Roundtable.
For over 30 years, KOCT has been a community media resource. KOCT exists because of viewers like you who want and need to stay informed about their community. Only KOCT provides local election coverage and live airing of government meetings. Support this public service by making a tax-deductible donation today. It's easy. Go to KOCT.org, click on the donate button, make a monthly or a one-time donation. Help us help you stay informed about North County. Support your hometown television station today.
Tee off at the Oceanside Municipal Golf Course. Located minutes from downtown Oceanside, the Oceanside Golf Course showcases 18 holes, is open to all, with special consideration for Oceanside residents. Featuring an all-grass driving range, lessons and camps, a full-service grill, and spectacular views. The Oceanside Golf Course is an affordable option for a great day on the green. The course is open every day from 6 a.m. till sunset, located at 825 Douglas Drive. For best rates, book online today. Visit playoceansidegolf.com or call 760-433-1360.
Are you on the hunt for classroom space to teach a yoga class or to hold a meeting? El Corazon has you covered. Our classroom is 3,100 square feet, and retractable walls can create 4 smaller rooms to allow different activities to be in session at one time. A wide array of recreational activities, from fine arts to exercise classes, may be accommodated. Both the classroom and the attached outdoor patio are available for rentals 7 days a week. Let us know how many people are in your party, when you want to meet, and we'll have the room set to your needs. For more information and to schedule the facility, please email Parks and Rec Admin Facility Rentals or call 760-435-5533.
Did you know most men take better care of their cars than they do themselves? Nearly 26% of men 18 to 44 years old in the United States do not have a regular source of health care. Make an appointment today to ensure you stay healthy tomorrow. This message is brought to you by Tri-City Medical Center, advanced health care for you.
Welcome back to North County Roundtable. I'm your host, Kent Davy. Our final guest is an old friend, Logan Jenkins, longtime San Diego Union Tribune columnist and former panelist on KOCT's Journalist Roundtable. Welcome back, Logan. It's nice to see you.
Great to see you, Ken.
You know, you've been a columnist, I am estimating, for the Union Tribune for 22 years at this point.
Your math is perfect. It's perfect. 21 years. 21 years. Almost exactly.
But your newspaper career is, it's got to be a good 20 years before the start of 20 years before that.
I came to North County about 1985, I think.
Give us a little rundown of your history, your journey through this being an ink-stained wretch.
Well, you know, I started out wanting to be a university professor, and I just wasn't very good, I guess, because I could never get a tenure track position. But in the early 80s, anybody could be a newspaper man, as we used to refer to them, because it was such a labor-intensive industry. Even though there was a recession going on, I could get health insurance, I could get a paltry salary, and I could keep my family afloat. So I started at the Daily Californian, which was a small. Well, first of all, I went to Northwestern for a master's degree program.
In journalism?
In journalism. Okay. But I was in my early 30s. You know, Reagan was just coming in as president. And so out of that, I got hired by the Daily Californian as a copy editor, learned what a pica pole was and how to size a photograph. And after that, I became the editor at the La Jolla Light.
Okay.
Which changed my life. It was a little weekly newspaper, and
still is. Yeah. One of the few surviving at this point.
But it was a cash cow. It was 56 pages of broadsheet. It was just so, because it was the only way you could sell real estate in La Jolla, because there are no for sale signs allowed. And I had a little staff of 6 people. Absolutely loved it. Then I took a little detour. I took a job with the Price Company, starting up a newspaper for them. Worst decision I ever made in my life. It was solely determined by money, and usually those decisions are bad ones. So then I begged Will Corbin, who was the editor of the Daily Times Advocate, to take me on as an editorial page editor, and absolutely adored that little newspaper, and was a city editor for several years, and then we were sold to your old company,
the Howard family,
and I had a good relationship with the the San Diego UT North County editor, Tom Nolan, and he asked me to be a columnist for them, and I did that for the next 21 years.
Do I recall that your father was a newspaperman?
He was, as was my grandfather.
And as is your son.
As is my son.
Not newspapers, but...
Well, he started out, he was with the New York Times for several years, but he's now a senior writer with Sports Illustrated. So there's a lot of ink in those veins,
Yes,
and it was probably a kind of Oedipal problem on my part that I didn't go into newspapers earlier, but I wanted to be a man of letters, and
and you indeed became a man of letters, just lots of letters.
Lots of messy letters, not in hot type, but because I came along a little after that.
Do I recall correctly that one time you told me that being a columnist was the pinnacle of the best job you could imagine?
Well, it certainly allows you the most freedom. Because people always say, well, how do you decide what to write about? Well, my answer is always, I just write about what interests me. And it's a rare opportunity to be able to just pursue whatever interests you. And then every now and then I can write what I might call, a lame attempt at humor, personal interest, or take up the biggest issues of the day.
Yeah, and you don't spend so much time up here in North County anymore. Probably lucky for you, and more poor for us.
Well, I went into the editor shortly before, I was like early October, and said I think I've hit my expiration date as a 3-time-a-week columnist. And our editor, Jeff Light, was kind enough to say, well, would you do 1 column a week? And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe that's the kind of glide path you need out of a lifetime of newspapering. So that's what I've been doing. I enjoy it a lot. I do still write about North County occasionally.
Yes, you do.
And but the relationships I have up here are just really great. So many people have kind of gone. I think of Bill Craven, for example, the state senator who was responsible for giving us Cal State San Marcos. In Oceanside, I think the most unforgettable characters I knew were a kind of perfectly matched opposite pair.
And they would be?
And Melba Bishop.
And Jack Orr.
And Jack Orr. And they were like the greatest sources ever.
Okay, so how did you make them sources?
Well, I think it was because I genuinely liked them, as people. I would call, Melba didn't get out all that much, she was, her health was always a bit of a problem. So I'd call her and I'd say, Melba, how are you doing? And she'd say, oh, not so good, and she'd start, talking about, her health. And then I'd say, then I kind of interject some politics. And by the end of the conversation, she was bellowing, because to her, politics was a drug. And similarly with Jack Orr, we'd get together at the beach break or whatever spot in Oceanside. And he was a great storyteller, a great raconteur. Of course, he was completely on the opposite of Melba Bishop. But, I found out later that they were great friends, and they talked on the phone a lot, kind of like Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King or something. It was just
O'Neill and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, there was that, they loved the game of politics, and they played it very well.
And you have always been, or it strikes me, having read you these years, you've always been really wired into politics in North County and San Diego generally. We are coming up to a brand new nutty season all over again.
We've got the greatest race ever up here.
All right, tell me about that.
Well, it's the 49th, and as everybody knows, Darrell Issa decided not to run. He's sort of part of this wave of Republican heavyweights in Congress who just sort of look in the future, and they realize that it's going to be a bloodbath, and they don't want to run the possibility of being humiliated.
Right.
And so I actually thought that it was going to, before Issa took off, I thought it was going to be this fantastic scenario where you had 4 pretty credible Democratic candidates. And then you had Issa, and you knew Issa would get somewhere between 40 and 50%, given. And so then you had these 3 males, all of whom had you know, an argument to make.
Right.
And some money behind them. Doug Applegate, not so much money, but he was the former candidate. You know,
who lost to ISO by only, what, 1,500 votes or something?
Yeah, he came within a whisker.
Yeah.
And I think no one was as surprised as he was that he came so close. I think he was doing it on a lark because he doesn't have any background in elective politics. So, but the fascinating candidate to me was Sarah Jacobs, who's the granddaughter of Irwin Jacobs, the founder of Qualcomm. She's a very, you know, earnest, accomplished young woman, but she's 28, and if elected, she would have been the youngest congresswoman in history. There have been younger congressmen, I think. The constitutional threshold, I think, is 25. I think it is. You know, 25, yes, but she's 28, and so I saw her appeal, and she also has money behind her, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, you know, she's talking about, you know, millions of dollars in two media markets because the 49th district, as you know, straddles Orange County, and the majority of it, though, is in San Diego County. So I thought she was going to be, Isa Jacobs, you know, which would have been a great race to observe, you know, on its own. Well, Isa pops out, and then it's like the land rush, right? Rocky Chavez, whom we know very well here, Diane Harkey, you know, Orange County, we also know very well, and then, but now we have Kristen Gaspar, right, whom we also know well. She's a great political athlete,
and she is, by the way, the 5th District Supervisor.
Not 5th,
third district. Third district.
She's the 3rd District Supervisor. She ran two years ago and won. So she's running from a, you know, she's got her seat even if she loses.
Right.
However, you know, she's going to be a tough competitor, and so then you have more Democrats even coming in. So you have a situation, since we have the two top vote getters,
which is otherwise known as the jungle primary.
Right. It's going to be a scrum, and I don't think there's any way to predict how it's going to work out, because I think by the filing deadline in March, you could have some people dropping out.
Right.
The Republicans traditionally are more disciplined. You know, they kind of give orders for these kinds of things. Democrats, Will Rogers famously said, "I don't belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat." So here's what would be a nightmare scenario. Two Republicans are the two top vote getters.
A nightmare for the Democratic Party here.
And so it would be a year where you would expect sort of a movement,
right,
a movement election, and you'd have two Republicans running. So,
best guesses who might end up?
I wouldn't bet against Gaspar. I think she's a tough. It's all about who wins or places.
Right.
Because then you reset the whole thing.
Right.
So I think that's our most interesting race, the supervisor race. I think, which is a great, you know, Bill Horn's seat. I just think Jim Desmond's been positioning himself for years for this. Jerry Kern, I have a lot of respect for Jerry Kern, but and I don't think Esther Sanchez is posing much of a threat. So,
well, Esther hasn't raised any money, as I understand,
right,
so that's not likely.
It could be kind of she was just on a lark,
right,
to run.
You, by virtue of having covered Oceanside for years and years, know Peter Weiss pretty well, the new mayor of Oceanside. Any thoughts about Peter's taking that spot?
Well, I think it was probably the only choice they could make, since everybody wanted to be mayor, and nobody on the council wanted to give it to the other one. So I think he becomes a good compromise. I think it's certainly a better option than having, you know, gone to the expense of running an election.
Right.
You certainly have to concede that he knows the nuts and bolts.
No question about that.
And I think everybody's going to be happy that we don't have any more of these 2-2 votes. And I think it was absolutely tragic that Jim Wood had to retire. But I think it was it was something that caused a lot of heartache in Oceanside.
And he had a good service and a long run as mayor, and his service both as a police officer and as well as a mayor,
right,
in the city. done a lot for the city.
Yeah, they should name something after him.
There you go. Well, probably should wait to be a memorial, though, not to hurry him along or anything like that. But
all right.
Your reference to the La Jolla light being the large broadsheet when you started a long time ago, I was told when I came here in '96 that there were, I think at that time, or maybe just prior to that time, 7 daily newspapers in this county. Don't know if that's quite right or not.
Well, when I first got here, Vista was kind of the battleground for North County. And let's see, I'm counting 6. Daily newspapers were actively kind of merging there. The one I loved the best was the Vista Press, because it was the most parochial newspaper I've ever seen in my life. I kept a headline once of a Scandinavian ferry, because they'd run wire stuff on the front to kind of pretend that they were covering the news. So there was this ferry that capsized, and let's say 700 people died or whatever. So the headline was, Scandinavian ferry capsizes, and it says 700 die, and then no Vistans on board.
Well, to make it local.
Well, there could have been somebody from Oceanside, but or Rancho Bernardo, but it just didn't. Nobody. It was just so encouraging for those in Vista. So there was that, and then there was the Los Angeles Times had a San Diego edition that was extremely good, but they just cherry picked the major stories. Then you had the San Diego Union, which was a separate newspaper, and the Evening Tribune, and then of course the TA and the Blade.
And the Blade.
And so by my math, that's 6. But it was a healthy atmosphere, I must say, for newspapers. And as we both know, gradually we've winnowed it down. So there's one survivor.
And the survivors who are still on a newspaper payroll are getting fewer and fewer. Just last week, Digital First announced more layoffs to Orange County Register and Riverside.
Right.
It's been 5 years since the North County Times stood alone by itself.
I'm sure you can do that math.
I can do that math very easily. Yes. What happens to the 23-year-old who, the new Logan Jenkins, who is holding up his or her hand and saying, "Gee, I want to be a journalist"?
That person cannot say, "Gee, it's such a labor-intensive industry anymore." No, I think my advice would be the same. I mean, you have to be willing to work for very poor wages. You got to work your way up, and not everyone is going to be as lucky as my son was to make a good living in journalism. It's a calling. You have to really want to do it.
Right.
And there are great outlets. I mean, the Voice of San Diego, I think, is a tremendous asset. It's just that there aren't as many of us. I would estimate that the pure sort of shoe leather manpower at the UT has been reduced at least 60%.
And that has been as a result of probably a half a dozen at least rounds of various kinds of layoffs through various different ownerships, because you guys have turned over a bunch of times.
But here's what it's interesting, Ken, and you may or may not agree, but what's left are very dedicated people. And there's going to be a newspaper there because the demand is still there. We keep thinking about, well, eventually the last newspaper is going to hit the last porch in the United States, and it'll all be digital. But the thing about people my age is that we're stubbornly staying alive, and we want a physical newspaper, and it actually makes money. It still makes money, whereas the digital side, it's a lot dicier. How they actually monetize. So newspapers are hanging on a little bit longer, and also, this is a little bit of an X factor, Trump is really good for business.
Well, yeah.
He makes newspapers more important in a way that the movie, The Post, the Spielberg movie, kind of underlines how important newspapers are in moments that many people see as sort of crisis-filled. You know.
How does that translate, though, to as I make my way through days here in North County, and I obviously have relatively few contacts inside the actual business, newspaper business world anymore. How does that translate, though, to local news coverage and this the kind of the paucity of I hear people say, well, I don't know what's going on in Carlsbad City Hall particularly anymore. We just don't, there's not as many reporters there covering.
Well, it's not quite a Potemkin village where there's nobody there, but it's you might have one reporter who's kind of showing up in 2 or 3 different contexts.
Phil Deal covers a lot of the ground right now.
So the one, that's what I was kind of getting at in a clumsy way. The people who are left are very high achieving, dedicated people who can't hide. You know, there used to be newsrooms where you could kind of hide, or you could be let loose on a project. I mean, how's this? After maybe the second or third day after I became city editor of the Times Advocate, there was a postal shooting in downtown Escondido.
It was the first going postal, as I recall.
Right, there have been other incidents of violence, but the term going postal kind of took off during that period of time. And so our editor then, Richard Peterson, decided that he would free 3 reporters to do nothing for 6 months, but figure out why in the hell people in post offices were going postal. I mean, it's just incredible to think that a small daily newspaper would do that today.
Right.
But we did it, and we were nominated we were the last 4 for a Pulitzer Prize. And man, that was exciting stuff. Couldn't happen today. Could not happen.
In your long storied career, you've written lots of memorable columns, met lots of memorable people. Who are some of them that would top that list, or columns that might top that list?
Well, you know, that's a tough one. But you know, newspaper people are traditionally very lousy interviews. So I don't.
No,
really...
you're doing great. So, and by the way, thank you for being here. Thank you for all your service on Journalist Roundtable.
But let me tell you one that came to me with it just made me almost start doubling over with laughter. So I met the Farmers Insurance
Open.
Yeah, it was on Sunday, and you know, it becomes apparent that we're running out of daylight, right? And we can't finish the tournament. And I think it was Jason Day said, well, why don't we just get a few cars and turn on the headlights and let's go. And so it reminded me of, it was right after 9/11. Bush had just been reelected, and Dick Cheney is staying at Aviara. So it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the Secret Service guys get the alert that tracer bullets, or what look like tracer bullets, are going off at the golf course. So they get into their black SUVs, they go running out with some sheriff's deputies, and they find these 2 guys who are playing night golf. They sneak onto the course, and they've got these glowing golf balls, and they're holding those little those squeezy flashlights in their mouth and putting glow sticks in the hole. and so they were arrested, you know, for trespassing. But then I got to know the guy who was arrested. And the only way I could get the interview with him was to promise to play tennis with him. And then he gave me the interview about how he spent all of his time going from golf course to golf course playing at night.
That's a great story, Logan. I'm really sorry we're out of time. I want to thank you for coming and talk to us. And by the way, good luck in your tennis game, because I know you're a fan or a aficionado of the game.
I'm not an aficionado. I'm a slave.
A slave. Okay. Thank you for watching this edition of North County Roundtable. Don't forget, you can watch or share this episode by going to KOCT.org. Stay informed about your community by watching North County Roundtable. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
KOCT program underwriters are not affiliated with the City of Oceanside. This program is underwritten in part by Waste Management of North County in Oceanside. We are dedicated to serving customers and community as a safe, comprehensive service provider, a good corporate citizen, and a responsible environmental steward. Think green. Think Waste Management.